What's going on, everyone? Pat Infante, www.eat4abs.com. And this video is not going to be for everybody, but I think it will hold value to people that are in the same situation as me, and that is training around lumbar spinal injuries. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, this video is different. It is just geared towards those of you who are like me, who have some lumbar spinal injuries. I've lived with these injuries for about a decade. I injured my back initially in 2012, oddly enough, shoveling snow, another product here of the wonderful Northeast. But my injuries are, I have a disc herniation between the L4 and L5 and L5 and S1 disc, which is in the lower back down here. I have a bulging disc, L3, L4, and spinal stenosis, which is the narrowing of the spinal canal, and arthritis. So I have the gamut here. And over the course of a decade, I've learned what I can do, can't do in the gym. And I'm here to share it with you. You know, if you're living with these injuries too, and you have some tips and pointers, I'm still learning, even a decade into this, and I'm still honing in on ways to work around it. So please leave a comment below, DM me on Instagram. I would love to talk with you and share some information, because you know, it is a tough injury to live with at times. So the more information I think that we share, the better we all are. So get into it. First tip is use a weightlifting belt on everything. And don't just strap it on and wear it. I mean, breathe into it, use it as support. You know, really the only thing that I don't wear, obviously, a belt for is abs, really. Outside of that, I pretty much use it on everything. Do I absolutely have to use it on everything? I don't know, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I'm always very conscious of wearing a belt. So that is step number one. That's the first thing you need to get yourself. All the support that you can add, the better. Step two, absolutely no deadlifts. Never deadlift again in your life. That is just asking for a back injury. You know, about 4 years ago, I was feeling a little better, feeling a little risky. I said, you know, I'm going to start deadlifting again. And I got about a month into it. Sure enough, one day, with just 135 on the bar, going for the first warm-up set, injured my back pretty good. Next day, I couldn't move, and I was in the hospital. And that was when I had the hard realization that, although I knew this initially, but no matter what, I will never deadlift again in my life. And to tell you the truth, I'm very conscious how I pick things up too, especially coming from the ground in general. But certainly that deadlift type of weight, no, it's done. If you have a lumbar spine injury, forget deadlifts forever. Another thing, glute ham raises, throw it out. It's just not worth it. Any kind of motion leaning back like that, that kind of hip hinging extension backwards is, I find a lot of times one of the main things that causes the problem. I could do crunches all day long. I don't really have a problem doing crunches. I've never had a flare up doing crunches. And, you know, this movement here in general, in anything, that kind of extension back is one of the things that causes problems. Rows to avoid: seated cable rows and bent over barbell rows. Anything that puts your lumbar in a weak extended position. And it's not so much the row itself, to be honest with you. At times when I have caused injuries to my back rowing and had a flare up, it's not on the actual row. Seated cable rows, I really love. That's something that I have very good mind muscle connection with. And it's an exercise that I really like. But I noticed that I've had multiple instances, not so much on the actual row. It's when the exercise is done and I'm putting the weight back gently and it's weighted and I'm leaning forward with that weight while the lumbar is kind of in a weak position to lay the handle back down. That extension forward with the weight, putting it back simply has popped it a few times. Same thing, bent over barbell rows. I mean, that's self-explanatory. Same thing almost as a deadlift. You're putting your lumbar in an extended forward, weak position with weight on it. you're just asking for a problem. So those exercises, throw them out. Next, avoid too much depth on the leg press. Again, if you could imagine that going down too low on a leg press, if you think about going down too low on the leg press, think about how that would create that arch in your back and put a strain on your low back. Definitely, you could leg press, but be conscious of how far down you are going on it. Another thing is embrace dumbbell lunges. And I have another video about this exercise, and I will link it down in the description below. But this is an exercise that is very lumbar healthy, I would say. It's a compound movement that you could substitute in that's not gonna be extremely risky on your low back. The weight is not on your shoulders. It's on your side, and it's a very good compound leg exercise that most people overlook, and I think it's even more beneficial to people with low back problems. So you can still do compound leg exercises, you could still add weight to it, and do that in substitute of some of the more risky exercises. Some replacement exercises, especially for the rows. Cable rows, just stand up, because you could just walk that weight forward when you're done. Always be very conscious of your back position. Don't get a herky-jerky type movement. And the same thing, chest-supported T-bar rows, also very good. It takes a lot of your low back out of it. And again, you can do your barbell rows, essentially the same type of movement by having your chest supported, much better on the low back. Squats. Now, my back doctor tells me not to squat. He says I shouldn't squat. Is it as bad as deadlifts? I don't believe so. Have I popped my back, so to say, or thrown it out at times squatting? Yeah, I have. But I love squatting, and against the doctor's recommendation, I still continue to do it. I'm not saying that's right, but if you're the average gym rat like me, you can't live without doing squats. The way I have learned to minimize my risk is I warm up extensively on it. I know going into it, this is a high risk exercise on the low back. I'm very conscious to stay in perfect form. The moment I feel my form is at risk on the next rep, the set is over. I rack it and that's it. I do take breaks at times from programming squats in my routine. I think that's definitely a good idea. The other thing is I go for reps rather than weight. And tell you the truth, from a hypertrophy standpoint, you're going to get better results that way too. The loading heavy weight on your spine and doing sets of 8, sets of 5, that's very bad for your low back. At the same time, putting lighter weight where you're doing sets of 20 to 30 on squats, try that and you'll be wishing that you were doing only sets of 8 with heavier weight. It's actually a better workout. Yes, you got to drop your ego a little bit, but if the goal is to have a good workout and not injure yourself, it's a much better way to go about it. Try sets of 20 and 30 on the squats and tell me how you feel. And at the same time, find ways to make lighter weight harder. Very slow eccentrics. Pause at the bottom for 1 to 2 seconds. Use a full range of motion, or sometimes don't lock out fully at the top. Keep the tension on your quads and your low body. So those little tips will help so that you could remain to squat. Some other basic thoughts. End sets of anything when the form is at risk, no matter the exercise. If you think your form is breaking down, just rack the weight. Live to fight another day. Avoid herky-jerky movements. A lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, but there's been multiple times when I've actually injured my back or had a flare-up caused by doing shrugs, because it's a kind of a herky-jerky movement, and combine that with a little bit of a form breakdown. We're favoring one side over the other maybe or something, and that little movement, I've multiple times I have hurt myself like that and had a flare-up. The other thing is give your body rest. Your low back takes a lot of systemic fatigue. Program deloads based on time rather than feel. 8 weeks is a good time frame. Go 8 weeks, run a deload week, drop your, either take the week off or cut everything in half, weight and volume, and weight and sets and everything for a week. That'll be good. Look for warning signs, fatigue, stiffness, things like that. Maybe just take a day off here or there even if you plan on going to the gym that day, if something doesn't feel 100% right, believe me, just take the day off get back on it the next day. When warning signs do start to appear, and tell you the truth, it's not a bad idea just to regularly use a heating pad from time to time. I've noticed when I do have flare-ups, I find that a heating pad does shorten the healing time of the acute flare-up. And then, time to time, just run a maintenance phase or recovery training, different parts of the year. And I'll make another video at some point talking about maintenance training and recovery phases and those type of periods of training. That'll be a whole nother video coming at some point. And that's pretty much it. Really that's the end. Spinal injuries are for life. They don't get better. They can definitely get worse. And you don't want to contribute to that. You want to extend out your training years as much as you can. So, I wanted to come on, give you this video. Hopefully, this helps somebody out there that's in the same situation as me. I've learned a lot over the 10 years training around this injury, and I wanted to share it with you. If you're in the same boat, I would love to hear some comments below or reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to share some information back and forth as I'm still every day learning how to live with this injury and getting better and better at it over time. So if you like this video, please hit the like button below. Please subscribe to my channel. You could see me on Instagram, follow me there. You could also check me out on my website, www.eat4abs.com. Pat Infante, and I am out.